The giant alien warship VOR-80H Dominion carrier, 12 drifted silently through the cold void, its metallic hull glowing under the dim light of the distant star, and deep inside the warship, tension thickened like smoke as soldiers in heavy armor stood shaking in formation, whispering among themselves about the creature they all feared, the legendary beast the humans supposedly carried into battle, the creature that could tear through armies, melt steel, break bones with a breath, and leave entire fleets running for their lives, and today was supposed to be the day they finally saw it. The alien general, a massive four-armed warrior with scales like black stone and eyes like molten gold, marched across the interrogation chamber with heavy steps that made the floor shake, his patience already dangerously thin. They had captured a lone human explorer in a tiny shuttle drifting too close to their borders, and according to galactic rumors, humans always traveled with a monstrous biological weapon disguised as a harmless creature. Today, the general wanted answers. The chamber lights flickered as the human was escorted inside by trembling guards who kept their weapons drawn at all times. Even though the human walked calmly, casually, almost like he had been invited to a dinner party instead of being dragged into an interrogation room on a hostile alien warship. He wore a simple jacket, dusty boots, and a relaxed expression that didn't match the situation at all. When the guards shoved him into the metal chair, the human didn't resist. He simply crossed one leg over the other and looked around the room as if admiring the decoration. The general slammed his fist on the table, making the metal bend slightly under the force, and growled, "Human, identify yourself." The human blinked once, then smiled lightly. "You can call me John." The general narrowed his eyes. "Your full designation?" John shrugged. "Just John." The general hissed in frustration, swishing his tail across the floor. "Do you think this is a joke? Do you think the VOR-80H Dominion stands here to entertain your human cleverness?" John tilted his head. "I mean, the chairs are pretty uncomfortable for entertainment." The guards sucked in a sharp breath. Nobody ever talked to the general like that. But John sat relaxed, as if he had no fear of death, no worry about torture, no concern about the dozens of alien weapons pointed at him. The general leaned forward, his voice low and cold. "We know what you carry, human. We know your species hides a terrible creature, a monster unmatched in the galaxy." John raised an eyebrow. "Oh, do we?" The general slammed his fist again. "Do not play dumb. We intercepted your signal. You said you had the beast with you." John's lips curved into a tiny smile. Yes, I did say that." The soldiers in the room flinched. Some stepped back. One whispered a quick prayer to an alien deity. The general gave a signal, and the heavy door on the far side of the chamber slid open with a metallic growl. Soldiers entered pushing a massive armored container, 5 meters tall, reinforced with energy shields, locked with 72 bolts, and surrounded by glowing warning symbols in alien language. The entire warship had been trembling in fear ever since that container was discovered in the human's shuttle. Nobody dared open it. Nobody even dared touch it without protective gloves. The general spread all 4 arms dramatically. "Bring in the beast." The soldiers pushing the container gulped so loudly it echoed. John smiled again, lying back in his chair. "I hope you're ready." The general puffed out his chest. "I am always ready." He gave the order. "Open it." The soldiers froze. "General, are you sure?" "Now." The guards rushed forward, hands shaking as they typed the unlocking sequence. The container hissed, steam rising as each bolt unsealed one by one. Thump, thump, the sound of something moving inside. Soldiers screamed and backed up. The general snarled, activating his body armor as a safety measure. John's smile widened. The final bolt clicked. The door began to open. Light flooded the chamber, white, blinding, dramatic. Everyone held their breath. And then out walked a tiny, fluffy earth puppy. A small golden fluff ball with round eyes, floppy ears, and a wagging tail so fast it looked like a blur. It waddled out of the massive container with the confidence of a king but the size of a loaf of bread. Everyone froze. Not a single alien moved. One of the guards dropped his weapon. The puppy sniffed the air, saw John, and immediately perked up, letting out a happy bark before running toward him with tiny, excited steps. John leaned down and patted the puppy's head. "Hey, buddy, you did great." The general stared. His massive armored jaw slowly dropped open. "That is the beast?" John grinned. "Yup." The general's eye twitched. "That is a small mammalian creature. It is tiny. It is harmless." The puppy barked again. One tiny, adorable bark, and several soldiers jumped backward, some even yelping in fear. John raised a hand. "Ah, careful. That's a happy bark. The angry one is louder." The general slammed 2 of his 4 fists on the table. "This is a joke. You brought a pet." The puppy sat beside John's boot, tail thumping loudly on the cold metal floor. John scratched behind its ears. "Well, technically he's my partner. Very brave, very loyal." The general leaned in, pointing a trembling finger. "Explain to me, human, how this tiny furry creature is the fearsome monster that made the Zalorian Empire surrender an entire moon." John's smile softened into something more mysterious. "Oh, they misunderstood something. They feared humans. Not because of what our beasts do, but because of what we do when someone hurts them." The room went quiet, extremely quiet. The puppy sneezed, and half the soldiers flinched. John continued calmly, voice gentle and eerily steady. "You see, in human culture, our animals are family. We love them, we protect them, and if someone ever hurts them..." John lifted his eyes slowly, and for the first time a dark, dangerous shift spread across his face. A shadow of something old, something cold, something terrifying hidden beneath the soft human smile. "Humans don't handle that well." The general took a small step backward without meaning to. John's voice remained soft, but there was a deep gravity beneath it. "Across the galaxy, you hear stories of the beast, but the truth is, the real danger isn't the puppy. It's the human who raised it." The puppy playfully chewed on John's shoelace, unaware of the tension. John didn't look down. His eyes stayed locked on the general. "Humans protect what they love with everything they have. We don't stop. We don't run. We don't surrender. That's why armies fear us." The general swallowed hard, his stone-like throat making a sharp clicking sound. "So, the beast is symbolic?" John leaned back casually. "Sort of, but he does bite ankles. So be careful." The puppy barked again, loudly this time, and a soldier screamed and ran into the wall. John sighed dramatically. "Okay, relax. He's teething." The general rubbed his temples with all 4 hands. "This is impossible. Absolutely impossible." John shrugged again. "That's humanity for you." But before the general could regain control of the situation, warning sirens echoed through the warship. The lights flickered. The walls vibrated. A mechanical voice shouted in alien language. "Intrusion detected. Level 3 lockdown activated. Unknown craft approaching." The general froze. John slowly stood up. The puppy growled, a tiny but serious growl. John's smile returned, sharper than before. "Ah, that must be my ride." The general blinked. "Your what?" John stepped forward as the puppy trotted beside him. "My friends. You didn't think humans let their own get captured, did you?" The sirens grew louder. The floor shook. The general shouted orders while panicking soldiers scrambled in every direction. John simply lifted the puppy into his arms and said softly, "Okay, buddy, let's go home." The puppy licked his cheek. Behind them, the alien warship shields failed. Outside, a human strike ship uncloaked, silent, massive, and ready for war. And in that moment, the general realized the truth. The humans weren't afraid of losing their beast. The galaxy should have been afraid of losing theirs. The aliens stood frozen, their huge reptilian bodies stiff with terror as the tiny earth puppy trotted happily across the metallic floor, its small paws tapping like soft raindrops. It sniffed the air, wagging its fluffy tail with excitement, completely unaware that an entire army believed it was a monster capable of destroying civilizations. The alien general's antenna quivered, his massive fangs clicking nervously as he leaned back, gripping the edge of his war table like the puppy might explode any second. The human just watched with a calm smile as the puppy pranced around the chamber, sniffing armored boots and licking the cold metal walls as if exploring a playground instead of a warship. One soldier screamed when the puppy brushed against his leg, jumping backwards so fast he hit the wall and fell face first, shaking as he shouted, "It touched me! The beast touched me!" The human chuckled quietly, covering his mouth with his hand as if trying to be polite, but his eyes sparkled with amusement. The alien general finally gathered the courage to speak, though his voice cracked. "Human, explain. This creature. This tiny, furry thing. This is truly the legendary beast of Earth." The human nodded casually, crossing his arms as the puppy climbed onto his lap and curled up comfortably. "Yep," he said softly, scratching the puppy behind the ears. "This is the one." The aliens gasped in unison, stepping back like he had just activated a superweapon. The general whispered to his officers, "It sleeps. Is this the moment before it transforms?" Another officer trembled, tapping his claws rapidly. "Sir, according to the rumors, the beast has two forms, the soft form and the destruction form. We must remain cautious." The general nodded quickly, fear crawling into his voice. Yes, that must be it. The creature only pretends to be harmless before revealing its true power." The human raised an eyebrow, pretending to think deeply. "Oh yes, definitely. You should be careful. If you make it angry, it goes, well, crazy." He didn't finish the sentence, letting silence do the rest of the work. The aliens stiffened again. The puppy yawned. A soldier fainted. The human gently placed the puppy on the floor, watching as it wandered around fearlessly, approaching even the biggest alien commanders, who immediately moved behind each other in panic. One soldier tried to hide behind a crate, but the puppy followed him with playful curiosity, hopping after him with little jumps, thinking it was a fun game. The soldier screamed again. The human couldn't stop laughing now, his shoulders shaking as he tried to stay respectful. But seeing a 7-foot-tall armored alien warrior run from an 8-inch-tall puppy was too much for him to handle. The general slammed his hand on the table, trying to regain authority. "Stop laughing, human. This is a serious investigation." "Sorry," the human said, wiping a tear of laughter from his eye. "It's just, he thinks you're playing tag." The general blinked. "Tag? Is that a code word for its attack pattern?" "No." The human sighed dramatically. "It's a children's game." Confusion spread through the entire crew. Even the ship's AI flickered in confusion on the holoscreen. The general looked at the puppy again, trying to understand what kind of terrifying weapon humans had created. The puppy tilted its head cutely. A soldier whimpered. "Why does it stare like that?" one alien whispered. "It is choosing who to kill first," another replied, trembling violently. The human bit his lip hard to keep from laughing again. But inside, something deeper stirred, something emotional, because he knew what the aliens didn't understand. They saw fear, danger, and weapons everywhere. Humans saw companionship, loyalty, love. The very things that made humans powerful in the galaxy weren't claws, lasers, or monstrous forms. It was heart. It was connection. It was the unbreakable bond between humans and their animals. Creatures who would run into burning buildings, storms, or war zones just to protect their human companions. The puppy barked once, a tiny playful sound. It echoed across the chamber like thunder. Every alien jumped. The human smiled gently. He picked up the puppy, holding it close. "You want to know why the galaxy fears us?" he said softly, his voice calm but carrying weight. The aliens leaned in, terrified but curious. The human stroked the puppy's head, letting its soft fur warm his hands. "It's not because of the size of our weapons," he said slowly. "It's because even the smallest creatures in our world fight for us." The room fell silent. The aliens stared at the human in shock, realizing the bravery behind the words. The human continued, "This puppy would attack giants if they tried to hurt me. It would bark at armies. It would stand between me and danger without thinking twice." The puppy wagged its tail proudly, as if understanding every word. The general swallowed hard. So, this creature is loyal? The human nodded. More loyal than any soldier you will ever command. The general looked at the puppy again, this time not with fear, but with a strange respect. So that is why your species is feared, he whispered. Even your smallest are brave. The human gently placed the puppy on the floor again. Brave, he said softly, and full of love. The aliens didn't understand the word love. Not completely, but they felt something shift inside the room. Something warm and unsettling. Something powerful. And they knew this interrogation was not going the way they expected. Because the more they watched the human and his tiny puppy, the more they realized something terrifying. The galaxy had judged humans wrong. Humans weren't feared because of monsters. Humans were feared because monsters feared them. And this tiny puppy, this innocent ball of fluff, might be the most dangerous thing they had ever encountered. Not because it killed, but because it made humans impossible to defeat. The puppy stood in the center of the interrogation chamber, tiny paws tapping on the cold metal floor as it sniffed the air with innocent curiosity, completely unaware that dozens of alien soldiers were pressed against the walls, trembling, clutching their weapons like they were facing a cosmic monster instead of a fluffy Earth baby. The alien general tried to keep his dignity, but his huge armored body kept inching backward every time the puppy took a step, his mandibles twitching uncontrollably while he whispered to his second-in-command. Why is it not attacking? Why does it stare like that? Is it reading our minds? The human, sitting casually with his arms crossed, fought the urge to laugh as he watched trained alien warriors panic every time the puppy wagged its tail too fast. When the puppy suddenly sneezed, 3 soldiers screamed and dived behind a crate, one dropping his plasma rifle which discharged upward and burned a smoking hole in the ceiling. Sparks fell everywhere. More soldiers panicked and scattered like terrified insects. The human simply sighed and said, "Relax, it's just happy." The general didn't believe him. He pointed at the puppy and shouted, "It made an explosion noise." The human rubbed his face in embarrassment. That was a sneeze. The general stared as if the human had just confessed to murder. But the puppy didn't care about fear, panic, or terrified aliens. Cared about one thing, making friends. And when its big round eyes landed on the general's shiny boots, the puppy instantly assumed they were a toy. It ran, tiny feet tapping quickly, straight toward the general. The general roared, "It's charging!" and tried to climb the interrogation table despite his armor weighing a ton. Soldiers screamed, slipping and sliding across the metal floor while trying to escape the small blur of fluff racing toward them. The second-in-command shouted, "General, the creature is approaching at dangerous velocity." But the puppy simply reached the general, sat politely, tilted its head, and gave a single soft bark. That was all it took. The general fainted on the spot. The human slapped his forehead. The puppy wagged its tail proudly, thinking it had impressed someone. The human knelt, picked up the puppy gently, and sighed. "You're causing an interstellar diplomatic crisis. You know that?" The fluffy creature licked his chin in response. Meanwhile, the aliens slowly crawled out from their hiding spots, shaking, panting, whispering to each other in shock. One soldier muttered, "It incapacitated the general without even touching him." Another whispered, "It must be a psychic predator." A third said, "No, it uses psychological warfare. Fear, confusion, cuteness." The human looked up sharply at that last one. "Cuteness? That's not a word." "IT is now!" The soldier screamed, still traumatized. The human tried to argue but gave up. There was no logic here anymore. Suddenly, alarms blared through the warship. The room turned red. The ship AI announced, "Warning. Unknown energy surge detected in Sector 4. Evacuate immediately." The general jolted awake with a gasp, staring wildly around. What did the beast do? Is it summoning reinforcements? The human opened his mouth to answer, but before he could speak, the puppy wriggled out of his arms, jumped down, and sprinted toward the hallway, excited by the flashing red lights. The human cursed under his breath and chased after it. The aliens hesitated, but they couldn't let the beast run loose. So they chased too, stumbling, screaming, tripping, slipping, crawling away from the puppy while also trying not to lose sight of it. The hallway became chaos. The puppy ran joyfully, ears bouncing, tail wagging like a tiny helicopter. Every step it took, aliens jumped away like it was made of lava. One alien slipped on his own tail. Another smashed into a wall. A third accidentally fired a plasma rifle into a door panel, causing it to malfunction and trap 3 officers inside a storage closet. The human sprinted after the puppy, yelling, "Stop! That is not chewable!" Because the puppy had spotted something disastrous. The ship's main power cable. The human lunged forward just in time, scooping the puppy up before it could nibble on the glowing cord. But in that moment, the alien general and his soldiers saw something horrifying. The puppy had reached for the ship's power core. They all screamed. It was trying to destroy the ship. The beast knows our weak points. It's analyzing our infrastructure. The human spun around, exhausted, holding the puppy who was now wagging happily in his arms. It was going to chew a wire. That's it. That's literally it. But the aliens weren't listening. They backed away slowly, terrified, convinced the tiny creature was an unstoppable force of nature. The human sighed again. He could see this misunderstanding wasn't going away anytime soon. But things got worse, much worse, when one soldier accidentally pressed the emergency broadcast button. Suddenly, every screen on the warship lit up with a live feed of the puppy staring into the camera. Head tilted, ears flopped, tail wagging. The entire alien fleet froze. Millions of warriors, hundreds of warships, all staring at one tiny Earth puppy. And then everything erupted into panic. Fleet commanders shouted orders. Shields up. Prepare anti-beast defenses. Brace for psychological assault. Do not let it look directly at you. The puppy continued wagging its tail. The human facepalmed so hard he almost knocked himself unconscious. And this was only the beginning of the disaster he was about to clean up. The room felt colder the moment the aliens recovered from their shock, their wide eyes flicking between the tiny puppy and the calm human who sat as if this entire situation was nothing but a funny misunderstanding. The puppy, unaware of the tension in the air, bounced happily from one metal corner to the next, sniffing glowing alien boots, wagging its tail like it was greeting old friends, while every alien soldier recoiled in panic, their rigid armor shaking, their big insect-like eyes following the tiny creature as if it were a bomb ready to explode at any second. The alien general, a towering creature with dark blue skin and razor-sharp tusks, stood frozen, unable to decide if he should run, fight, or scream. He had prepared for a monster that could tear apart ships, a creature that legends claimed could melt steel with a roar, a beast so terrifying alien commanders never dared to speak its true name. But instead he got this. A soft, wiggly, fluffy Earth puppy rolling on the floor and sneezing. The human simply watched with a small amused smile, leaning back in the interrogation chair like a man relaxing in his living room, giving the puppy a casual whistle that made it run toward him with pure joy and jump into his arms, licking his face like it had been reunited with its favorite person in the universe. The aliens gasped in horror, covering their mouths, stepping back even more. One soldier nearly fainted, whispering, "It touched him. The beast touched him." Another whispered, "How is he still alive?" The human couldn't stop a small laugh slipping out. He held the dog gently, scratching behind its ears, and the puppy responded by flopping onto its back and demanding belly rubs. The general felt sweat drip down his neck ridge. Explain this creature," he demanded, his voice cracking between fear and anger. The human lifted the puppy like he was presenting a royal treasure, smiling softly. This is just a puppy." The aliens flinched at the word puppy like it was some forbidden code. The general leaned forward, shaking. "And what exactly does it do?" The human blinked innocently. "It loves people. It likes to play. It eats snacks. Sometimes it chews shoes." The aliens trembled harder, misinterpreting every word. It loves people? One whispered. As in, consumes? The human burst into a grin, realizing how terrified they truly were. No, no. Loves. As in cuddles. As in heartwarming affection. The aliens turned pale. It attacks the heart directly? The human sighed, rubbing his forehead because explaining Earth pets to paranoid aliens was harder than explaining quantum physics to toddlers. The puppy wriggled free, waddled toward the general, and before anyone could react, it placed its tiny paws on the general's giant armored boot and let out a happy yip. The entire room screamed. Soldiers raised their weapons. The general nearly fell backward. It touched me, he shouted, lifting his leg off the ground as if bitten by a fire serpent. The puppy tilted its head, confused, then barked cheerfully. Half the soldiers dove behind the control consoles. The other half begged the human to call off the beast before it released its true form. The human stood, picking up the pup again, shaking his head in disbelief. But then he paused as he looked into the alien's terrified expressions. Slowly, a tiny idea sparked in his mind, an idea that could change everything. He sat back down calmly, letting the puppy curl up in his lap, and looked straight at the alien general with a level gaze. "Let me ask you something," he said softly. "Why are you so afraid?" The general stiffened, embarrassed. Because the legends say humans unleash these creatures when they want to destroy civilizations. The human blinked, speechless. "Who told you that?" "The Korlax Empire," the general whispered. "They said humans released the beast on them, and their armies fell within days." The human raised an eyebrow. "Ah, that was a flu." The aliens froze. "A what?" "A flu. A small Earth virus. They caught it because they never washed their hands." The room fell into a stunned silence, the aliens looking like their entire worldview had collapsed. The general stammered. Then what about the story of the giant roaring beast that toppled cities?" The human scratched his chin. "Oh, you mean the bulldog that ran loose on their training base?" He was just excited. The aliens stared at him in horror. Everything they feared, everything they believed, every rumor they spread, was about creatures that Earth humans kept as pets. But then the human's expression changed. Something serious flickered behind his calm smile. He leaned forward, lowering his voice, and the soldiers stiffened immediately. "But let me tell you something real." All eyes locked onto him. Even the puppy lifted its head. "Dogs, puppies, beasts, whatever you want to call them, they are dangerous." The aliens jolted. The general took a step back. The human continued, voice calm but heavy. "They are dangerous because they chose humans. They protect humans. They fight for humans. They never leave our side. And when someone hurts us," his eyes hardened, "they turn into warriors." The aliens swallowed loudly. Even the puppy seemed to puff up proudly. The general trembled, whispering, "You mean, it will fight for you?" The human nodded slowly. "If someone threatens me." The general stared at the tiny creature in awe, his mind imagining it changing shape, growing giant fangs, breathing fire, even though all it did was nibble the human's fingers. But then something unexpected happened. The puppy jumped down again, trotting over to one of the smallest alien soldiers who sat shaking in a corner. It nudged the soldier's knee gently, tail wagging. The alien froze, then slowly, shaking heavily, extended one trembling hand. The puppy licked it. The soldier fainted instantly. The human burst into laughter. The room spiraled into chaos again. Soldiers shouting for medics, alarms going off because someone accidentally stepped on a control panel, and the puppy happily running in circles like this was the best playground in the galaxy. But the human just watched quietly now. He saw something bigger happening. The aliens weren't just scared. They were learning. They were realizing humans weren't monsters, or weaklings, or myths. They were different, unpredictable, emotional, loyal, dangerous in ways no weapon could describe. And this tiny puppy, rolling on the floor with its tongue out, was proof. Whether the aliens liked it or not, their world was about to change, and the human was ready for the next step. The alien general stood frozen as the tiny puppy stared up at him with bright, innocent eyes, its small tail wagging like a vibrating antenna of pure excitement, and the alien soldiers didn't know whether to scream, run, faint, or salute the creature because they had all grown up hearing terrifying stories of a human-made monster that could melt armor and outrun starships. Yet here it was, a soft ball of fur trying to jump high enough to lick the general's metal boots. The human watched the chaos quietly, leaning back in his chair with that relaxed human confidence that always confused alien species who never understood how humans could be calm in moments that should have terrified them. And when the puppy tripped over its own paws and rolled across the smooth metal floor, emitting a tiny sneeze that echoed through the chamber, every alien flinched as if the sneeze was the start of an explosion. One soldier whispered, voice trembling, "General, it's preparing its attack stance." But the puppy was only shaking excitement off its ears. The human couldn't stop himself from laughing softly, which somehow made the aliens even more uneasy, because humans laughing before danger was a thing many alien legends warned about. The general stepped back slowly, his massive frame trembling, tendrils flicking nervously as he whispered, "Human, explain this creature. What is its power? What does it eat? Does it consume metal? Souls? Stars?" The human tilted his head and said calmly, "Treats, and sometimes slippers." The general blinked rapidly, confused, unsure if slippers was the name of a galactic species he had never studied. Meanwhile, the puppy happily ran circles around him, sniffing his armored boots, stumbling, then raising its tiny face with joyful innocence. But in the middle of that innocent playfulness, something happened. One soldier tried to touch the human without warning, stepping too close with a stun baton. And that was the first time the aliens understood why humans feared nothing. The puppy froze, its small ears lifting, its tiny nose twitching as it sensed the shift in danger long before any alien did. And in less than a heartbeat, the soft, silly, clumsy baby animal became something entirely different. Its tail lowered, its eyes sharpened, a growl built from deep in its tiny chest, shocking enough that the soldier dropped his baton instantly. The room turned silent as the puppy placed itself directly between the soldier and the human, teeth showing in a tiny but fierce warning. The general gasped, stepping back as the puppy let out a sharp bark that echoed like a command across the chamber. It wasn't just a bark. It was a threat, a promise, a signal of protection so strong that an instinctive fear spread through every alien body in the room. The human simply folded his arms and smiled proudly. "See? That's the beast." The alien general stared at the small creature that now guarded the human with absolute determination, its little body trembling with emotion, yet refusing to move. "Impossible," the general whispered. How can something so small be so ready to die for its master?" The human's smile softened into something deeper, a truth rising in his eyes that no alien had ever understood. He said quietly, "Because humans don't create monsters. We create family." The puppy barked again as if agreeing, stepping forward with enough courage to fill an army, and the aliens felt something ancient stir inside them, an emotion they rarely felt, respect. The general slowly lowered himself, bringing his huge body closer to the small creature, studying its stance, its loyalty, its fearless heart. "This tiny creature," he whispered, "would fight an army for you?" The human nodded. "Not just fight. It would never leave me, not even for a second." The general exchanged glances with his soldiers, all of whom had forgotten their weapons, forgotten their fear of the human, and now stared at the puppy with wide, almost reverent eyes. They had prepared for a monster that destroyed worlds, but instead they discovered something far more dangerous. A creature that loved without limits, without conditions, without fear. And that was a danger they had never trained for. The puppy then walked toward the general slowly, sniffing his giant armored hand before nudging it gently with its tiny head, demanding affection the same way it demanded protection. The general froze at first, then hesitantly petted the creature. The puppy melted instantly, rolling on its back and asking for belly rubs. Every alien in the room gasped in disbelief as the general, a war leader feared across 7 systems, slowly scratched the tiny human creature's belly while whispering in awe, The beast accepts me. The human smirked. Congratulations. That means you're officially part of the pack now. The general swallowed hard, his voice trembling slightly. Human, your species, your creatures, your loyalty. It is frightening. Good, the human replied with a wink. Because this little guy is only the beginning. The aliens leaned forward as he continued, his voice calm but filled with a quiet power. Humans don't conquer galaxies with armies. We conquer them with bonds, with courage, with hearts that never break. The puppy barked proudly as if confirming the statement. The room fell silent again, but this time not from fear, this time from understanding. Something deep and ancient shifted in the air. Something the aliens had never felt before. Something powerful enough to change the course of their entire future. Because for the first time in their lives, they understood the true meaning behind the galaxy's most feared legend about humans. The alien general stood frozen with his giant-plated hands hovering midair as the tiny Earth puppy bounced happily across the cold metal floor, tail wagging like a tiny engine, its soft paws tapping the ground like harmless raindrops. But the soldiers didn't see harmless. They saw a monster disguised as innocence, and terror spread through the chamber like wildfire as they stepped back, tripping over each other, eyes wide with fear because they still believed the human had unleashed a legendary creature capable of destroying worlds. And the human watched them with a calm amusement that made the general even more nervous. The puppy sniffed the boots of a tall insectoid guard, and the guard froze so completely that even his antennas refused to move, whispering softly, "It is choosing its first victim," before falling backward and scrambling across the floor, leaving deep scratches with every panicked push, while the puppy simply tilted its head in curiosity. The human gently knelt, calling in a soft voice, and the puppy ran to him instantly with a happy bark, jumping into his arms, licking his chin, tail wagging rapidly, and the human scratched behind its ears like nothing strange was happening at all. The general stared so hard that his eyes almost popped out of his armored skull, trying to process how this harmless creature could possibly be the reason alien fleets panicked whenever humans mentioned the beast. He finally gathered enough courage to step closer, but each step felt like stepping toward a ticking bomb, and he cleared his throat, trying to sound brave but failing miserably as his voice cracked. Human, explain. How does this soft creature destroy armies? The human looked up with the calmest smile, as if the answer was obvious, and said, "It doesn't destroy armies. Armies destroy themselves trying to deal with it." Confusion washed through the entire chamber, and the puppy jumped down, trotting around the metal room until it reached the general's massive foot. The general froze again, terrified that even a sniff could start the end of his species. But instead, the puppy gently placed one paw on the general's boot and whimpered softly, asking to be picked up. The general flinched like someone had stabbed him, whispering, It wants something from me? What does it want? Blood? A soul?" The human laughed so hard that even the puppy blinked at him, confused. "It wants you to pick it up," the human said simply, and the general shook his head, stuttering, "And never. I am a general of the Khazar Dominion. I do not touch death spirits." But then the puppy barked, a tiny, high-pitched sound that echoed through the chamber, and every alien soldier screamed at once, hiding behind chairs, shields, or even each other as if the bark had sent a shockwave of doom. The human sighed, picked up the puppy himself, and held it out toward the general. "Look," he said softly, "just pet it." The general's entire body armor rattled from fear, but something in the human's tone forced him to try, and with trembling claws, he touched the puppy's head gently. The puppy closed its eyes in bliss and licked his armored knuckles. The general froze again. But this time something changed. Slowly, very slowly, his shoulders relaxed, his breathing steadied, his eyes softened. "It is warm," he whispered in disbelief. "It is soft." The puppy nuzzled deeper into his hand, and the general let out a small gasp, as if he had never felt gentleness before, and the soldiers stared in shock because they had never seen their general melt like a candle in the sun. The human watched all of this quietly, a soft smile forming as he said, "This is why the galaxy fears humans." Silence filled the room for a moment, Heavy, deep. Every alien leaned in. Every soldier waited. The general blinked. Because your creatures are soft? No, the human said, voice low but warm. Because we'll fight entire galaxies to protect something this soft. The words hit the aliens harder than any weapon ever could. They suddenly understood. Humans didn't fear danger. They didn't fear war. They didn't fear death. What humans truly feared was losing the tiny, innocent, fragile things they loved. The general looked at the puppy in his arms, then at the human, and for the first time since the interrogation began, he felt something he never expected to feel: respect. Deep, quiet respect. The puppy curled up happily against the general's chest, falling asleep instantly, its soft breathing echoing gently through the chamber, and the general held it like a priceless treasure, whispering, "Such a small creature, yet you protect it with such fury." The human nodded slowly. "That is humanity." The soldiers exchanged looks, the fear in their eyes replaced by awe, because they suddenly saw the truth. The power of humans did not come from muscles, weapons, or monsters. It came from heart. Fierce, unstoppable, protective heart. The room was silent again, peaceful now, the tension replaced by something almost sacred, as the small Earth puppy slept in the arms of an alien general who had once sworn to destroy humankind. And for the first time, the galaxy understood exactly why humanity was a force to fear and admire. The alien general stared at the human in total shock, unable to understand how a tiny Earth puppy had shaken the entire warship more than any weapon ever had. And the human slowly walked forward, scooping the puppy into his arms as the little creature wagged its tail with unstoppable joy, licking his face and yelping happily as if the entire galaxy wasn't watching it with terror. The alien soldiers kept their weapons raised, but their hands were shaking, their minds confused, their hearts pounding because nothing made sense anymore. How could something so small, soft, warm, harmless to look at make battle-hardened warriors feel like the universe had flipped upside down? But the human didn't bother explaining. Instead, he whispered softly to the puppy, scratching its ears and telling it had done a good job. And when he turned toward the aliens, his expression changed, becoming calm and serious in a way that made the room fall silent again. He walked slowly, letting the puppy sit in his arms, and said, "This is the beast you fear, but the fear you feel is not because of him. It's because you don't understand humans at all." His voice echoed through the chamber, low and steady, and the general stepped back without meaning to, startled by the shift in the human's aura. Because a moment ago he looked harmless, but now he looked like someone who carried storms inside him. The human continued, "You think our strength comes from big weapons, giant fleets, explosions, power. But our real strength," he paused, letting his fingers run gently over the puppy's fur, "comes from what we protect." The aliens exchanged confused glances, unsure what he meant, but something in his tone felt heavy, important, and the general swallowed hard, waiting for him to continue. "Humans," the prisoner said slowly, "are dangerous not because we fight for ourselves, but because we fight for the small things, the soft things, the things that cannot fight for themselves." The puppy yawned softly, completely unaware that it had become the center of a galactic legend, and the alien general, still confused but more curious now, asked in a shaky voice, "Then why do the stories say your beast destroyed armies?" The human chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Not this beast. Humanity's beast is our heart. You can kill us, chain us, attack us, insult us, but if you threaten what we love..." His eyes hardened, a quiet fire rising behind them. "We become something the universe has never seen before." The soldiers froze. The general felt a cold fear crawl up his spine, not because of the puppy, but because of the human's calm certainty. The way he spoke not with threats but with truth, raw and simple. The human stepped closer and placed the puppy on the metal floor gently. The little creature walked toward the general, tail wagging, head tilted, letting out a tiny bark as if inviting him to play. The general panicked and stumbled backward so hard he nearly hit the control panel, and the human sighed, picking the puppy up again. "See," he said softly, "it wants to love you, and you're terrified of love." Those words hit the aliens like a silent explosion. The human continued, his voice steady and emotional. If you want to know why the galaxy fears us, it's not because we have monsters. It's because we are monsters when we have to be, to protect the defenseless. We guard our children, our families, our friends, even strangers. And yes, even tiny creatures like this. The puppy licked his chin again, innocent and joyful. The alien general stood frozen, speechless, shaken to his core because he realized he had misunderstood humans completely. Humans weren't feared for destruction. They were feared for devotion, for loyalty, for love so fierce it became a weapon. You captured me, the human said calmly, but you hurt no one. You threatened no one. You only wanted answers. And because of that, he placed the puppy on the general's trembling hands. You have nothing to fear from us. The alien general stiffened, his heart pounding as the puppy sniffed his fingers and nuzzled his palm gently. The room watched in stunned silence. No one moved. No one breathed. And slowly, very slowly, the general's rigid shoulders softened. His fingers trembled slightly, then steadied as he let the tiny creature sit against his chest. For the first time in his career, he felt something warm, something gentle, something he never expected to feel from a terrifying human beast. The general whispered, almost too softly to hear, "It's beautiful." The human nodded. "We know." And then everything changed. The warship alarms stopped. The tense energy disappeared. Soldiers lowered their weapons. The human looked around and said, "Now you understand humanity's real power. We don't conquer. We connect." The general, still holding the puppy like it was a fragile gem, bowed his head slightly. "Human, you are free to go." The human smiled. "I know." As he turned to leave, the puppy barked as if saying goodbye, and the general whispered to one of his soldiers, "Send a message across the empire. Humans are not to be provoked." But the soldier shook his head and murmured back, "General, I think the whole galaxy already knows." The human walked back to his ship, lifting the puppy and carrying it like a hero carries a small piece of home. And as the alien warship moved away, every soldier aboard understood one truth they would never forget. Humans were not feared for their weapons. They were feared because they protected the things that seemed weakest, with a fury the universe could never match.